President Zelensky announced the first arrival of Abrams assault tanks by the United States, which currently has 31 Abrams, ultimately become a part of a bigger group of immigrants from Western Europe has battle tanks, all of them pushing toward the same objective, making the Russians own a third M1 Abrams tank, combat tank of a new generation with a U.S. Army general. It was developed for armored terrain combat in the Cold War. 40 years after the end of the war, it has undergone extensive improvements and is the main combat weapon for the U.S. Army. The Abrams tank has been used in multiple armed conflicts worldwide, includes Iraq and more than 60 tons of Afghanistan, and is one of the heaviest tanks ever built. Bulky due to a service, yet it's mostly unaffected by anti-tank weapons. The 120mm main guns. Effective range more than 4 kilos. The M1 Abrams' distinguishing feature is the kind of gas turbine engine it has, despite the fact that it has outstanding performance. Even Washington has admitted that it uses a lot of gasoline consumption in comparison to custom diesel. The U.S. acknowledges that the tank's engine system is costly and difficult to maintain. To run only 2 of the justifications Washington has resisted making a commitment. This combat vehicle just wants to send military forces to Ukraine. Bradley Bowman is a current commentator with the Defending Democracy's Foundations. Nice to meet you once again, but what is the importance of this arrival's first group of Abrams tanks? I appreciate the chance to participate. Once again, I believe the relevance is that it will provide Ukrainian soldiers with armor. They launch this counterattack on you. Currently, there has been considerable talk concerning whether these tanks are coming earlier than scheduled. I believe it's crucial to include putting Ukraine into perspective and requesting Western tanks soon. Following the invasion in February of last year, there was a significant reduction in hesitation in Washington and other capitals accept the requests. I believe our aversion to upsetting Putin, who is constantly feeling a little strange to me because of this. Ultimately, there was an unprovoked invasion, the biggest since World War. But you know, the United Kingdom, Germany agreed to this in January. And now, around 9 months later, notwithstanding the arrival of 31 tanks, just 31 tanks, yes, that is all. Just 31 tanks in all. However, we can add that even if we weren't conversing about these 31 tanks, we could additionally maybe not be referring to any conflict tanks from Western Europe at all for Russia, do you? I would agree and say that London and Berlin were excited to exit, if you will, the proverbial cliff together about the provision of tanks. That's why I simply wondered why you had this arrangement referred to in January and unlocking the German and British judgments on the Challenger and Leopard print tanks, so that's okay. But you are aware that there are 31 tanks here. View from a quantitative standpoint, is about the size of 2 M1 Abrams companies of the U.S. Army and the numerous U.S. Army and Marine Corps members as a lieutenant. One of these tanks, H.R. McMaster, former general and head of the old U.S. National Center here, a security expert, claimed that during an incident, I-30 tanks were moderated last week, so we should be offering 300. How probable is that to happen? What is the reality if? I imagine 30 and 60 are unlikely, at least in my opinion, because, you know how costly they are. Congress is just allocating funds, thus a large sum of money, and if you're going to make a list of the essentials Ukraine requires, some people question whether Abrams tanks are in the top 3 or top 5 rankings, and thus, these difficult choices must be made. It must be decided how to invest limited resources to bring Ukraine. I'm going to speak about what they most need. Just a second about money again, but I have a question for you regarding the Ukrainians. They're saying they murdered the commander when the Russian Black Sea Fleet strikes the Crimean Navy headquarters on Friday. What do you think of this? Friday. If you are aware of the assault last week on the Russian Black Sea Fleet, it seems from headquarters that Kyiv had the intelligence they anticipated. During this senior officers' meeting, they carried out this assault and accordingly reported, and you must always report with greater caution than 34 cops and 100 wounded individuals. Among those murdered was Admiral Viktor Sakova, commander of the Black Sea Fleet. You may recall that Ukraine asserts that it will not only strike the main building at the headquarters in addition to some anti-aircraft artillery and missiles are examples of only a portion of a bigger effort where Crimea is increasingly being targeted by Ukraine. For many reasons, one of which is because of its symbolic value and also because of its function in providing and strengthening Russian soldiers assaulting the south. Ukraine, according to sources, is supplying tactical missiles with a great range. Attacked Ukraine. Can on that. We anticipate confirmation shortly. And why would the Biden administration do that? Be cautious when you say, I know you know. I've been requesting that, Washington give Ukraine the assault so she may learn more. In less than a year, it will permit Ukraine to carry out more extensive attacks against areas seized by Russia, while Crimea will allow them to strike centralized components and logistical nodes. A vast range, their long strike potential, and it would increase systems offered by other parties. The airborne French and British people launched, but they came at them from the ground. Launch, which will result in more capacity, ability to generate Russian military planners conundrums. Consider what you are aware of. and the administration has posted a number of most justifications, in my opinion, cannot survive scrutiny. I believe this is at the heart of a lot of things. Provoking, but after we've asked, Ukrainians are asked not to use firearms for Russian attacks in the Ukraine have honored that. Thus I believe this to be a proactive mood action on your side, the administration of the bid, if not tardy. You may claim that the US went the additional mile and responded with Abrams to German calls for combat tanks. Should or would Washington should anticipate the same exchange from Berlin. As you are aware, I am unsure whether the Berlin will be relied upon by the government to provide the Taurus cruise, take, for instance, from my viewpoint, which might be advantageous as a result of the Taurus cruise missiles capable system is comparable to other systems that France and Britain have previously given. But I think about, among other things, air defense. Similar to where some of those, because I am a European, my allies can most. I believe that even in the cold, we need to anticipate these drones and missiles. The continuation of attacks and more air defensive ability are specific. I'd rank them in order of importance before time runs out. Let me just grab him. Maybe possibly you could provide us some McCarthy. The US speaker was quite clear. Last week, he reversed his previous opposition to continuing to back Ukraine with weapons the US government may shut down. Later this week, political Washington, D.C., seems to be anything and everything. Unless a trustworthy. If you're seeking a spouse right now, look at the Atlantis from this side. For Ukraine, is that precise? This, in my opinion, is not the finest. The United States at this time, a government shutdown is unattractive. However, it has been determined to consider us a source of assistance for Ukraine, a practice that is permitted under appropriations and government. In efficiency Washington lingo means we're going to keep teaching Ukrainians and to offer, notwithstanding the presence of their weapons, a government shutdown. But that's not the case at all, which minimizes the significance of a nation similar to what the USA shouldn't be during government shutdowns. Believe many individuals would agree with that. In addition to Bradley Bowman, thank you for your time. Your evaluation. If you love the video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.